Pulling out early, making my way, topping that barrel, baling that hay. Got a brand new double wide parked on the hill, a sweet little honey and a liquor still. Got a big tackle pocket full of jigs and spanners, a damn sure can make them dance. A John Boat, a Zebco, and
all right, guys, as part of our segment on setting duck and goose decoy spreads, you can see today it's really sunny out, it's really cold. It's 19 degrees when we got out of the truck this morning. And a lot of times what typically happens when it's really cold like this and it's really sunny, geese just hang out on the sides of these ponds and don't really do a lot of moving. They just conserve energy. They don't need to get out and feed. And what you'll see if you drive down the road, I know you guys have seen it when you're scouting, is you'll see geese all around these pond banks, especially here in central Kentucky and horse country. They're all laying on the bank. They all got their heads underneath their wings and they're sleeping. That's a spread that we set up today. What we have is probably 7 dozen sleeper shells mixed in with a few full bodies. And the reason we chose this spread, it's really been successful for us because not a lot of people do it. You know, these geese are getting smarter. Well, a lot more people are starting to hunt them and they're getting a lot harder to finish. So what we have here is we've got 5 dozen fully flocked sleeper shells. We've got some oversized shells just mixed in them. That's what you'll see. You'll see a group of 10 or 12 sleepers. You'll see a couple geese standing up beside them feeding. You'll see a couple sentries standing up. So this is an effort to kind of change it up and show them a decoy spread that they haven't seen. When these birds leave Canada and they fly down through the flyway, they're seeing tons of decoys these days. They're seeing a lot of layout blinds, a lot of decoys. So what we've got here, if you can see behind me, is I would say 80% of our spread, maybe even 90% are geese that are sleeping. They're just soaking up the sun. We've had 2 geese come through here this morning, 2 singles. We broke one of them off, finished him right in the hole and killed him, and the other one had a different agenda. So there's really not a whole lot to setting this up. What we try to do is we try to face most of our decoys into the sun. If you watch geese, that's what they're doing. They're actually facing into the sun. They've got their breast exposed to the sun and they're just soaking up the rays. They're trying to warm themselves up. And what they'll do typically too, when you see a situation like this, especially in a cornfield or even on this fescue, is these geese will lay down. They'll thaw them a patch out. There'll be 4 or 5 geese sitting in close. They'll thaw them a patch of ground out. You'll see them get up. They'll actually eat the grass that they've thawed out, or they'll eat the grain that they thaw out. And if you watch them over a period of a couple hours, they'll only move 10 or 12 feet. They'll lay down, they'll thaw a patch out, they'll eat right in that area. Then they'll lay down, they'll thaw a patch out, and you'll get a group of geese together. And if you ever walk up on a field where there's been a bunch of geese sitting, you'll see areas where there's no frost, and the ground will be tore up where they've been eating right there, especially in cornfields. So that's what we're trying to mimic today. Just a little tip on layout blinds. You can see behind me we have 3 finishers tucked up against this bank. What's happened is the water's down in this pond where these cattle been using it. You can see where they've tromped around here, and we're using the natural terrain to our advantage. What we've got is we've got 3 finishers. You can see them here. We've got them covered in grass. We've got them butted up against this bank, and what that does is that lowers the profile of the blinds. We've got this bank right up here behind us, right up behind these blinds, and it's kind of like having a small pit. When the water comes up on these ponds, we got to move up on the bank. These layout blinds have been blessings. 10 years ago, we used to hunt out of these things. We didn't even cover them with any vegetation. Geese didn't know what they were. They hadn't seen them. They were pretty low profile. That kept you out of the weather. But now what we're finding, and geese are getting harder and harder to finish. These blinds laying out in a cornfield, geese have learned to pick these little humps out. And we're finished. We're getting a lot of geese in, 60, 70 yards. The decoys look good, everything looks good, and they're seeing these humps and they're flaring. So the days of landing geese in your decoys, checking them for bands, really finishing them in tight, seem to be a thing of the past. Now you'll get a silly group every now and then and it'll still do it, but generally we're one of the biggest problems that we're running into nowadays is hiding our blinds. And we don't have the luxury of having pit blinds in the ground. These layout blinds allow us to be mobile, but the disadvantage is they do have a profile to them. Kill them, boys! Just real quick here, what I thought I'd show you guys is we've got a goose that we killed this morning, and we've got 2 sleeper shell decoys here. Both of them are very effective. But if you can notice the difference, the sun's right here beaming down on us. Look at the difference in this decoy as compared to a fully flocked. This is an oversized sleeper shell. This is a normal size sleeper shell. The difference in the two is that this one's fully flocked. This one has a flocked head. The rest of the body, if you notice, it gives that shine, that plastic look. This one is fully flocked. It has the flocking all down the body, and if you look at it compared to a regular goose, you get the same. Now you'll get some iridescence off these feathers in the sun, but if you notice, they're both darkened down. This looks more like a goose. Of course, they cost more. The flocking doesn't hold up as well. There's trade-offs and everything, but we try to run as many of them as we can. But you guys can see the difference just here with a live goose, how the flocking makes a big difference. Especially when a goose is circling around, this decoy set's going to change. He's going to see them from different angles. He's going to be looking into the sun. He's going to have the sun on his back. And also, what we try to do is the wind's this way, all right, which is perfect today because these geese are going to finish over top of the water. They're a lot more confident over the water. But they've got the sun right in their face. The last thing they see, the last 15, 20 yards, they're looking right into the sun. It helps us hide our blinds. It helps you get away with some mistakes in the decoys. And you really want the sun at your back. It doesn't always work out that way depending on which way the wind's blowing, but for today it's working out pretty good. We just need more birds. It's just been slow this morning. These geese are sitting tight. They're doing exactly what these decoys are doing. They're hanging out on the bank conserving energy. Now as it warms up a little bit, these geese are going to know the ground's going to start to thaw, the corn's going to start to thaw out. We expect that later on in the morning, 10, 11, things are going to pick up. But we saw some geese trading real early this morning, but they're way off in the distance, too far to call at. So it's just another tip. If you can afford the fully flocked decoys, go ahead and spring for them. They definitely help you finish a few more birds.
What we're doing here is we're melting off the frost that occurred overnight. When you run a big spread of decoys, it's hard to put them up, take them out, in and out every day. Where you can leave them out like this in a quick way. When you dust them off, a lot of it gets stuck down in the feather detail, especially on the Avery greenhead gears, due to the increased feather detailing they have versus other decoys. You can take a torch like this. We picked this up at Harbor Freight for 14 bucks. And you got a regular gas grill propane cylinder. You can go up to the decoy and you just want to flash it. You don't want to hold it on there too terribly long or you'll actually melt the plastic on the decoy.
Jamie,
so
throw these out.
What we do, I'll put the floaters out in just a second. I'll walk them out. We take this here torch, go just fire it up, it kicks up to a bright blue, and we just flash it. You just have to be a little careful on the flocking, because it will be flocking if your heads are flocking.
Here's a before. Here's after.
Right now we just melted. One man by myself. I just melted about 80 big feet in a matter of about 10 minutes.
All right, guys. Continuing on with our segment on setting decoys and some duck and goose tips and tactics. What we did this morning, we came out. We've got a big lake here that's frozen. Sorry about the noise in the background. We're right next to a highway. But we had an entire pond that was frozen this morning. We came in here and looked at it yesterday. There were 25 or 30 mallards on it. We didn't hunt it yesterday. We saw them in here the day before. We didn't hunt it yesterday because it was going to be really clear. We knew a lot of the ducks would come in before legal shooting time. So what we did this morning, we only had one strip right here on this side of the bank, and it worked out good with the way the wind was. It worked out bad with the way the sun was because we were looking into the sun this morning. Remember when we talked about in the goose hunting segment, we want the sun behind us if we can. We want the ducks and the geese looking into it. It just didn't, all the stars didn't line up that way this morning. What we've got is, if you notice, we've got all these duck decoys right up here in a pretty tight wad, and the goose decoys actually weren't there when we started this morning. We've actually moved them. But what we did is down in front of the blind here, about 20 yards from us, is actually in front of the blind. You notice that there's no decoys down there, and we did that with a purpose. The only place these ducks had to land was right here on this open water, and we left a hole right in front of the blinds on purpose. We filled this end up where if a duck tried to come in here and land, they really didn't have room, and that put them right in front of our blinds. So the ducks that we did have come in here this morning were great shots. They were in tight. The only problem was they all came in big bunches. we were finishing 3s and 4s, and they were getting right on the water and peeling out. We had to take them, and there were still ducks stacked up above them. We still had a good morning. We had a single goose come in here. We've seen a ton of geese. The one morning we chose to duck hunt, we've been covered up in geese, and this is really not a good place to work geese down here. You can see there's a lot of woods around this pond and whatnot. Something else I want to talk to you guys about. If you look at our spread right here in this hole, what you'll notice is we have very few regular, what I call regular duck decoys. Here's a couple here with their heads up, but most of them, if you'll see, are butt up feeders, no head feeders. We've got some of the new Avery Greenhead gear feeders, and the reason we're doing that is when you look at a bunch of ducks on the water and they're relaxed, you see very few ducks that are just sitting there. They're all doing something with a purpose. They're all feeding, they're preening. They're actually, if you walk up on a bunch of ducks, the first thing they do is they all raise their head up. And we're trying to make a very relaxed looking spread here. We have just as many specialty type duck decoys in this spread as we do standards. And there's a purpose behind that. What we also had this morning, Keenan, go ahead and pull on that jerk cord. We had a little bit of wind this morning, but not enough to put ripples on the water. If you look right now, there's some ripples here, but it's because I'm walking in it. We just rigged up a simple jerk cord this morning, nothing special. You can see these butt up feeders here. They're moving good. They're putting some ripples on the water. And these 3 decoys, these 4 decoys on this jerk string will put enough ripples in here to make the rest of these decoys look alive. Ducks get over top of you. If there's no wind and this looks like glass, they're not gonna finish. They know if there's 35 ducks in a 30-yard circle here, the water's gonna be covered in ripples. It doesn't hurt to get out every now and then, muddy up the water a little bit, make it look like they've been in here feeding, but just to change it up a little bit, the subtle details are what'll help you finish them. Don't use all head up decoys. They look alert, they don't look relaxed. Put a little motion in your spread. Now what we'll also do is we'll put a 20-foot piece of bungee cord on the end of our jerk string sometimes, and we'll go out past the decoys, we'll put a stake in the pond, and we'll actually put swimmers on it. We'll put heads up, especially on a goose spread, we'll put three heads up floaters on there, and you can pull this thing with that bungee cord. You can stretch it out there for 20 yards, and when you let it go, all those decoys will swim, and they'll turn around and they'll swim back when you pull on it. We didn't have that this morning. We just used a simple jerk string. Give it a few tugs, just enough to put ripples on the water makes a big difference.
That's fun, boy.
That was awesome.
That's so fun when they're right there. Like,
When they come
I didn't even
walking-
shoot, man. I was just letting y'all shoot. I was just waiting on them to come up.
When they come waffling through those trees, once you break them down in here, it's perfect, isn't it?
Yep.
How many we end up getting?
Got one out in the field back here.
None going out
that?
hurt.
Here, fetch it up. Let's go. Let's go. Fetch it up. How many we get? 3? Kill.
They spread out. They didn't get together.
They're little.
Kill it, Black. Kill it, Black duck.
Field. Zeke.
Alright guys, keeping with our theme on setting decoys, we came down here this morning, hunted the small river. Everything's frozen. We had 2-degree temperatures yesterday. We came down here and did a little scouting. We know when it gets like this little river gets hot. We came down here and scouted yesterday. Sure enough, this creek was holding quite a few ducks. So this is my buddy Jamie Fackler. He's going to tell you guys how we set these decoys up this morning. And go ahead, Jamie.
A couple things that you want to keep in mind when setting decoys on small rivers like this is going to be current and wind direction. It's going to be 2 major factors. One of the things we all know, ducks always laying into the wind. You want your decoys facing into the wind because that's normally the way you're going to find them sitting in order to avoid danger. So what we've done here today is the creek direction is flowing this direction. We've got the wind at my back blowing that way. So obviously we've got all our decoys, as you can see, tied to the fronts, and that's got them facing in the current of the river, facing down upstream with the wind at their back. Now, if for example the wind was coming the opposite direction, we need to take every one of these decoys and tie them by the tails. We're going to have the current is going to dictate the direction that the decoy is going to face, and then the wind is going to be obviously in the decoy's face, which is going to put them facing the natural way and the accurate setup that we're going to want to have. Another thing to keep in mind when you're hunting in extreme cold conditions, you're going to need to get out and check your spread. When you just look across this spread, you don't notice it, but when you start picking these decoys up, you'll see they're ringed in ice. And from birds over top, they're going to see that ice. They're going to see that decoy. And what it also does is it minimizes the movement. The larger that ice is, the less that decoy is going to swim and give it that natural look. So you're going to want to go out there periodically, knock that skim ice off of them, and set them back down in there. Yep. Another key thing when hunting in real cold conditions is to keep those decoys as dry as you can, especially on top of their backs. Today it's pretty overcast, it's cloudy, so it's not as important, but on a sunny, bright sunny day, if you took this same black duck decoy, you see it's a little dirty, but it's flat. If I dunk that decoy in the water, that's going to freeze, and then you can see the shine on that as it turns. Like I said, it's cloudy today, but if that was in bright sunlight, it's going to have a real strong reflection.
Something we've done in the past too, you got to take into consideration how much current you have. The creek the river's not really running that hard today, but what we've done in the past is you can put a half hitch on this decoy. You get your line out here, you can put a half hitch right in the middle, just put a great big half hitch right in the middle of this decoy, and you can actually put your line in the center. Now what that'll do, you normally won't do that, but what that'll do is when you get that current pushing on that decoy, and the current's not real bad here, but it'll let that decoy switch. Sometimes it'll be facing forward, sometimes it'll be facing backwards. It's just a swivel right in the middle. And that half hitch will come right back out. When you're done and you're ready to pick decoys up, you just reach up, pull that half hitch out, and it'll pop right out. But that'll give you, on a lifeless day, that'll give you your decoy to kind of do this in the current and the wind. That's just another little tip if you want to put a half hitch right in the middle. Alright guys, just one other real quick tip. We thought we'd show you guys. Every time we hunt this river, this river is completely a rock bottom from one end to the other. There's no way to stick a mojo pole in the ground. We used to do it years ago. We had to get out on a sandbar and it dictated where we put the mojo. If you choose to use a spinning wing, what we did here is we took a fan stand off an old oscillating fan that I had in the basement, and we used Christmas tree stands in the past, and what we did, we just threw this together real quick and kind of dulled it down with some paint, but we just take our mojo pole, stick it down in there, and it lets it sit on that rock bottom.